Welcome to World and Mind, the podcast where we explore the mind and the world in all their complexity. Together, we'll dive into personal growth, uncover new ideas, and share stories of motivation, useful insights, and diverse topics of interest. Whether you're seeking inspiration or practical knowledge, this is the place for you. Let's begin.
So, ready to dive deep into the psychology of success? We're ditching those vague motivational quotes today and getting into the nitty-gritty, the science-backed strategies for unlocking your potential. Sound good?
Absolutely. And you're right, it's not about magic, though it sometimes seems that way. Today, let's unpack those mechanics of mindset and habit formation that research shows actually drive success.
Love it. We're diving into a collection of excerpts and quotes you've pulled, all about those habits for success. What are some of the big themes that really jumped out at you from these sources?
Well, one major one is this idea of a growth mindset.
Okay, I've heard that term before, but honestly, sometimes it feels a bit buzzwordy. How would you define growth mindset, especially for someone hearing it for the first time, and why is it so crucial for success?
Great question. Our excerpt from Psychology of Success puts it really well, saying, it's the belief that your basic qualities are things you can cultivate through your efforts.
Okay, so it's not about just being born lucky or gifted. It's about believing you can actually grow your skill.
Precisely. And the book contrasts this with having a fixed mindset, where people think their intelligence or talent is just like preset, unchangeable.
So with a fixed mindset, you'd think, I'm just bad at math, always have been, case closed. But a growth mindset says, what?
It says, I might find math challenging now, but with effort and the right strategies, I can get better. It's about possibilities.
Instead of limits, that's huge. Psychology of Success, does it give any real-life examples of how this mindset thing actually plays out?
It does, especially when facing setbacks, which we all do. The excerpt points out that people with growth mindsets, they're more likely to see challenges as chances to learn, to grow.
Not as proof they're not good enough.
Right.
Makes sense. If you believe you can improve, failure's not the end. It's just data, right?
Exactly.
What I'm curious about, though, is can you change your mindset? Or are we kind of stuck with the one we developed early on?
Now that's where it gets interesting. Psychology of Success argues that your mindset, it's not set in stone. You can actually cultivate a growth mindset if you make a conscious effort. It takes practice.
So how do we do that? How do we go from I can't to I can, and here's how?
You've got to start by recognizing those limiting beliefs we all tell ourselves. Catch yourself saying things like, I'm terrible at this. Challenge those thoughts.
So instead of I'm terrible at public speaking, maybe it's public speaking doesn't come naturally to me yet, but I can learn.
Exactly. You're reframing those internal narratives.
Yeah.
From self-criticism to self-encouragement.
Love that. But even with the best mindset in the world, actually taking action, well, that can be tough, right?
Absolutely.
And that's where discipline comes in, right?
100%. Psychology of Success. In fact, it even argues that discipline, self-discipline specifically, it's more crucial than just motivation for success long-term.
Really? More than motivation? That's interesting. I would have thought they'd go hand in hand.
Well, the book says motivation can give you that initial spark, but discipline, that's what fuels the fire and keeps you moving forward even when things get tough. Because let's face it, motivation, it comes and goes, right?
Tell me about it.
Like we're all raring to go on Monday morning, then by Friday afternoon.
Exactly. My motivation's checked out by then, too. So if self-discipline's the key, how do we define that? What does it actually look like in practice?
Self-discipline, at its core, it's about making the conscious choice to align your actions with your goals, even when it's not easy or fun. Psychology of Success uses this great analogy of self-discipline being like a muscle.
Oh, I like that. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
You got it. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes.
Okay, so then how do we practically strengthen that self-discipline muscle? Especially if you're someone who struggles with procrastination or getting easily distracted, like me. What are some tangible steps?
Well, the book talks about this technique called implementation intentions. It's about setting specific plans. When and where you'll take action towards those goals. That way you're not just relying on willpower alone.
So instead of just saying, I'm going to eat healthier, I'd say something like, okay, every day for breakfast this week, I'm having, what would be a healthy breakfast?
Maybe some overnight oats with berries.
Overnight oats with berries? Yeah, I could do that. I like that. It's already decided.
Exactly. No more decision fatigue. You've made the decision in advance. You're less likely to just grab whatever's easiest in the moment.
Right. Like when I'm stressed and exhausted and the willpower is just
Gone,
Uh,
gone. And that's another key point the book makes. Even small changes, when you apply them consistently, they really add up to big results over time.
it's that whole tortoise and the hare thing, right? Slow and steady wins the race.
You got it. It's not about these huge overhauls that you can never stick to. It's the small, sustainable changes that make the real difference.
Sustainable is key. Okay, we've got a growth mindset. We're working on that self-discipline muscle. There's another thing that comes up a lot with success, and I have a feeling you're going to talk about it because it's in all the books. Self-care.
It's unavoidable.
It's unavoidable. But before anyone teens out thinking it's all face masks and bubble baths, can you talk about why it matters for success for real?
Right, because it's so much deeper than that surface level stuff. Psychology of Success dedicates a whole chapter to this, actually, to self-care. And it really emphasizes how connected our minds and bodies are.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, being stressed out, like truly stressed, it can impact my physical health too. How does that work?
There's a ton of research coming out now about that link between our mental and physical well-being. Chronic stress, for example, it releases hormones like cortisol, and over time, those can really mess with everything from your sleep to your immune system.
See, I never connected those dots before. It's not just about feeling good emotionally. It's like setting yourself up for success in general by taking care of your well-being.
That's it. It's all connected. And Psychology of Success gets really practical, too. It gives tips for making self-care part of your daily routine, like literally scheduling it in.
Wait, so instead of just hoping I find time for, like, yoga class, I should put it in my calendar like a meeting.
Exactly. Treat it like any other important appointment you wouldn't skip.
Huh, okay. No more excuses about being too busy. What else does it suggest?
Another simple one, but powerful. Incorporating little mindfulness practices throughout your day, even if it's just a few deep breaths between emails, meetings, all that.
Again, small changes, big impact.
Exactly. And it's really about being intentional with how you're spending your time and energy, even in those little moments. Psychology of Success emphasizes this. Self-care doesn't have to be this big, grand gesture. It can be as simple as making sure you're getting enough sleep.
Oh, sleep is huge and so hard to prioritize sometimes.
It is, but it makes a difference. Or fueling your body with nutritious foods, taking a few minutes to do something you truly enjoy that recharges you.
Okay, so we're taking care of ourselves, we've got the right mindset, we're building that self-discipline, but how do we actually direct all that energy effectively? That's where goal setting comes in, right?
You're spot on. Goal setting, it's like having that GPS for success, right? It gives you direction.
It's like the roadmap.
Yes. And it's not enough to just have these like vague ideas of what you want. I want to be successful. Okay, but how? We need those clear, actionable targets. And that's where SMART goals come in, which Psychology of Success calls a roadmap for turning those aspirations into concrete achievements.
Okay, SMART goals. I've heard the term, but honestly, sometimes it feels a bit jargony. Can you break down why it's more than just a buzzword and how it actually helps us create that roadmap for success?
Absolutely. SMART is an acronym, right? It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And each of those, each element, it's super important for creating goals that are actually going to motivate you and help you get where you want to go.
Let's break that down then, because I can already see how just saying, I want to be successful, it's setting myself up for, well, nowhere. What does it even mean for a goal to be specific? Why is that so important?
A specific goal, it gives you clarity, it gives you focus. Instead of just this vague, I want to save more money, which, let's be real, we all want to do.
Right, who doesn't?
Exactly.
Yeah.
A specific goal would be, I want to save $5,000 for a down payment on a new car. You see the difference there?
Okay, yeah. It goes from this like wishy-washy idea in my head to something concrete. Like I can actually picture that new car, I can feel it.
Precisely. It makes it real. And then measurable, the M in SMART. That means you can track your progress.
Yeah.
So with the savings goal, how are you going to measure it? Maybe you set up a dedicated savings account, you check your balance every month, see how you're doing.
You can actually see yourself moving toward the goal. That's got to feel good.
Exactly. That visual progress can be super motivating. Now, achievable, this one's important. It doesn't mean you shouldn't dream big, but your goals also got to be realistic. Psychology of Success, it actually warns against setting the bar too high, because then you're just setting yourself up to feel discouraged. You might even give up.
Right, it's got to be a challenge, but not impossible. It's like finding that sweet spot, right? Like challenging yourself enough that you're growing, but not setting yourself up for failure from the get-go. Okay, what about relevant? Why does it matter if a goal feels, personally meaningful to me?
Because if a goal doesn't resonate with what you care about, with your values, your vision for your life, you're going to lose motivation.
Hmm.
It's easy to get distracted by what other people think you should be doing. So it's about asking yourself, why do I want this? How does it fit into the bigger picture of my life?
It's less about chasing someone else's definition of success and more about like really owning what matters to you.
Exactly. You've got to be invested. And then finally, time-bound. It means having a deadline.
Oh, deadlines. My best friend and worst enemy.
Right. But they work. Because it adds that sense of urgency, it helps you stay on track. So instead of just saying, I want to save $5,000, by when do you want to achieve that? So you'd say, I want to save $5,000 in the next 12 months.
Okay. Yeah, just saying that out loud, it already feels way more motivating with a deadline.
Right. It makes it real.
Okay, so I'm feeling super clear on where I want to go, got my SMART goals in order. But then what? How do we actually bridge that gap between like having a goal and actually doing the thing, especially when those old habits come creeping back in?
That's where the rubber meets the road, right? That's where habit formation comes in. And this excerpt from Psychology of Success, it really emphasizes this. It says, quote, our habits are the building blocks of our lives.
It's like our habits, they kind of make us who we are, for better or worse.
Exactly. And the book actually quotes Charles Duhigg. He wrote The Power of Habit. And he said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit.
Okay, now that's a quote to remember. It's not just those one-time things, those bursts of motivation. It's the consistency, those routines we build. So knowing that, how do we reprogram our habits, especially the ones that aren't doing us any favors?
The key is to understand how habits actually work. In this excerpt, it breaks it down into what's called the habit loop. 3 key components: cue, routine, and reward.
The habit loop. Okay, I'm intrigued. Walk me through that, especially if we're trying to actually change a habit. Let's take procrastination, since I think everyone struggles with that at some point. What would that look like in the habit loop?
Let's say your cue, the thing that triggers the habit, is feeling overwhelmed by a big task.
Right.
Common cue for procrastination.
Oh, yeah, big time.
So then your routine, what you do in response to that cue, is you avoid the task. You scroll through social media, you check emails, you do those easier or less important things instead. And the reward, a temporary sense of relief from that icky feeling of overwhelm.
See, you're speaking my language. I know that cycle all too well. But knowing that, how do we break free? How do we, like, rewrite the script?
It starts with awareness. Once you can identify your specific cues, your routines, your rewards, you can start to interrupt that cycle and make a conscious choice to do something different.
So in the case of procrastination, instead of giving in to that urge to avoid, maybe I have a plan in place. Like, instead of doing the whole thing at once, I'm going to break this big, scary task down into smaller chunks, more manageable.
Exactly. And then, crucially, you associate a new reward with that new routine. Maybe it's the feeling of accomplishment you get after finishing one of those smaller chunks. Or maybe you reward yourself with a 5-minute break after, say, 25 minutes of focused work.
So instead of getting that, like, dopamine hit from scrolling Instagram, I'm getting it from actually making progress. That's clever, but let's be real, change isn't always linear. There are going to be times when we, stumble, we fall back into old habits. So how do we cultivate that resilience to keep going, even when it's hard?
That's where that growth mindset we were talking about earlier comes back in. Setbacks. They're not failures. They're opportunities. Opportunities to learn, to grow. Psychology of Success talks a lot about reframing that negative self-talk, those voices in our heads that say, you're not good enough or you can't do it.
It's like being your own hype person, right? Instead of focusing on the negative, you're actively looking for what's positive, what's possible.
You got it. And it's not about pretending the challenges aren't there. It's about choosing to focus on solutions, on those opportunities for growth. The book even shares this anecdote about Thomas Edison. After tons of failed attempts to invent the light bulb, he famously said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work.
Oh, I love that. Such a good example of reframing. It's like those failures, they're actually just valuable data points on the road to success.
Exactly. Speaking of data points, Psychology of Success also highlights how important it is to track your progress, not just to see how far you've come, but also to look for patterns, to see what's working, what's not, so you can keep getting better.
So it's like this constant feedback loop. We're always learning, always tweaking our approach. It's not about being perfect, it's about progress.
100%. And the book emphasizes this too. Celebrate those wins, even the small ones, because each step forward, it is a victory.
Instead of just focusing on how much further there is to go.
Right. Acknowledge how far you've come already.
I love that. But let's be honest. There are those times when the negative thoughts, the self-doubt, they just feel really loud. What helps in those moments when that inner critic is taking over?
Self-awareness is key. Psychology of Success,
Hmm.
it actually recommends journaling, specifically for this. Write those negative thoughts down, get them out of your head, and then try to challenge them with evidence. What's the actual evidence that you can't do this?
So it's like having a dialogue with that inner critic instead of just letting it run the show.
Exactly. Another strategy, surround yourself with people who support you. Friends, family, mentors, coaches, people who believe in you, especially when you're having a hard time believing in yourself.
It's like building a team of cheerleaders.
That's a great way to put it. And remember, asking for support, that's not weak. It actually takes a lot of strength and self-awareness to say, hey, I need a little help here.
This has been incredibly insightful. I'm learning so much. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to take a moment to acknowledge putting all this into practice, it's not always easy. Life happens, right? And sometimes it throws these curveballs our way when we least expect it. So how do we deal with those unexpected challenges, those setbacks? What about those times when it feels like our plans are falling apart?
You're so right. Life, it definitely has a way of throwing those curveballs when you least expect it, doesn't it? And that's where resilience comes in.
Resilience. Okay, another one of those words we hear a lot. But what does it actually look like in action?
Well, psychology of success defines it as the ability to bounce back from adversity, to learn from our mistakes, and to keep moving forward even when things get tough.
It's like that saying, it's not about how many times you fall down, it's about how many times you get back up. But how do we actually cultivate that resilience, especially when we're like in the middle of those tough moments?
One thing the book really emphasizes is the power of perspective. It's about making a conscious choice, and how we frame those tough experiences. So instead of seeing setbacks as these like giant roadblocks, what if we saw them as detours, opportunities to learn and grow in ways we maybe didn't expect?
Okay, I like that, finding that hidden lesson or opportunity in every challenge. But that takes practice, right? Especially when you're feeling discouraged, maybe even a little defeated.
Absolutely, it's a practice. And that's where self-compassion comes in. Psychology of success really emphasizes this. Treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to like a close friend who's going through a tough time.
So instead of beating ourselves up for not being perfect, we're giving ourselves a little grace, a little understanding.
Exactly. And this part really resonated with me. The book also reminds us that we're not alone in this. Everyone faces challenges. Everyone has setbacks. It's just part of being human.
So it's like normalizing those struggles, knowing everyone goes through it. But even with the best mindset, the best support system, there's still this pressure sometimes, to achieve certain things, to have that external validation, to prove we're successful by like society standards. How do we balance those external expectations with our own definition of success? Because those aren't always the same thing.
Such a good point. And psychology of success actually spends a lot of time on this very question. It argues that real fulfillment, true success, it comes from aligning your actions with your values, from going after what you're passionate about, living a life that feels meaningful to you, regardless of what anyone else thinks.
So defining success on your own terms, not letting society tell you what it should look like.
Exactly. And there's this great exercise the book suggests. It's about envisioning your ideal day, 5 years in the future. What are you doing? Who are you with? What kind of impact are you making?
Ooh, I love that. It's like a vision board for your life, but focusing on the feeling, the experience of it all, not just like material things.
Exactly. It's about tapping into what truly matters to you. And by connecting with that vision, reminding yourself of it regularly, you're more likely to make choices that align with it, choices that lead to that life of true fulfillment,
Choices that lead to your definition of success. I love that.
because it is personal.
This has been amazing. I feel like we could talk for hours about all this, but
Yeah.
before we wrap up, any final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with?
If there's one big takeaway from Psychology of Success and from all these incredible excerpts and quotes we've looked at today, it's that success. It's not a destination. It's not this finish line you cross. It's a journey. It's about embracing the journey, the ups, the downs, all of it. It's about growth, continuous growth, self-discovery, and trusting that you have the strength, the resilience, and the support to create a life that feels truly meaningful to you.
So well said. It's about the journey, not the destination. Becoming the best versions of ourselves along the way. This has been such an incredible deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you're walking away feeling inspired, empowered, and ready to unlock your full potential. Until next time, Keep exploring, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
Thank you for listening to World and Mind. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with others who might find it helpful or inspiring. Remember, every step in the journey matters, and together we can keep exploring new ideas and creating a better world. Until next time, stay curious, stay motivated, and keep growing.